replay myself. Cause you don't seem too sure that you wanna come to me and see me and get back to old times. Yeah, I'm trying to get at you. I got a feeling that you love me. Is that true? Oh yeah, is that true? And I can feel it rain again. I really hate it when the sun away. It'll never be.
Peace, brothers and sisters. Welcome to the Black Dispatch, featuring your brother Nuevo Black and
the young guy Haki, man. What's up?
Yeah, what's going on, everyone? We like to come to you each week with some discussion on contemporary issues that affect black, brown, and poor people. Lots been going on in the last week or so, Young God Haki. That song there, again, as I've told you all before, the Young God Haki is a hip-hop artist, and that's a song title called Love You More. Sound like some heartbreak was going on there, brother. What's happening with that?
Oh, no, that's not based on a true story, but it's a song that I wrote maybe a year and a half ago.
Okay.
It was an experiment type song, but I'm a very well-rounded artist, so I tap into what's going on and all that, and I thought it was a very well-written song, and I get a lot of good criticism for it.
Okay, good. That's a good thing. But back to the hip-hop thing now. You know, you've been an aspiring artist since you were 12 or 13 years old. What's the state of hip-hop today? You know, for somebody that's been in the music game with the pandemic, with the riots, I know some people dropping music. What are your thoughts about this current state of hip-hop?
Well, I think the current state of pop culture, period, which hip-hop, plays a major part in, it's almost on the back burner with all this stuff going on right now.
Right.
You know, like, you have rappers such as Little Baby and I can't remember the other song that came out. They're making songs. Beyonce dropped a song called Black Parade. But, people, it seems like people are sticking to those songs for 1 or 2 days, and then it's back to COVID or statues being.
And then that's interesting because it was already a trend where it seemed like music didn't have a long lifespan anyway.
Yeah.
And then all of this stuff happened. There's a lot more important stuff going on, and back to that topic we had last week. I know, last week we talked about J. Cole and No Name, and I think some other stuff came out about that, right?
Yeah. No Name's been on Twitter. I think a few days later, after, she apologized for the J. Cole situation, she felt as though she wasn't putting the real attention on the enemy.
Okay.
I guess that's what she was trying to allude to. And she said Jay-Z is the feds on Twitter.
Okay, so this is after she apologized to J. Cole.
After the apology.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jay-Z's the feds, and then I think I saw a tweet as well. She tweeted Beyonce in blackface, or
she quote tweeted it and was talking about she was coming for like black capitalists, as people would call it, basically.
So
capitalists.
Does that connect to the other tweet she had about? Because she said, "I wish Beyonce were Angela Davis or got some of the acclaim that Angela Davis got, or something like that." Yes. Okay. So what are your thoughts about this whole No Name thing then? Because I know last week we were sort of saying, yeah, J. Cole should have took an L on that one. What are your thoughts now in terms of No Name and what she's been calling out? I guess Jay-Z and the king and queen of hip hop pop culture. What are your thoughts?
Well, of course, I think No Name is a self-determined person, I would say. She has that self-determination that we need in our community. But when you start calling your brothers and sisters the feds and stuff, I think you might want to lax on that, considering you might not know exactly what they're doing behind the scenes. Maybe you don't understand some of the content that they've said on songs, that they have alluded to what their real motives are for the black community. And of course, she wouldn't want someone saying that to her, because no person is above criticism. Right. And I'm not saying these people that she comes for, are above criticism, because like I said, no man's above criticism. And I think that she should be careful doing that. But I don't have a problem with her criticizing others or criticizing the program rather than calling them the feds.
Yeah. I think that's anytime you say somebody associated with law enforcement, but I don't know what the root of that is. But just in general, I did see that the Beehive, which is, I guess, Beyonce's fan base, came at her, and they're saying she cleared her Twitter out. One thing I do think is fair game. When I saw the Beyonce in blackface retweet, I thought it was her putting Beyonce in blackface, but Beyonce actually posed for a French magazine some years ago in blackface. It was supposed to be to artistically bring out to show some things about African culture. But either way, a lot of people thought it was tasteless. For me, blackface is just a no-go, period.
Yeah.
It's just leave it alone.
You already
There's too much. If you don't have time to explain it to everyone, but then maybe there's no names point. I don't know. You get to a certain level of artistry, they above. They can do whatever they want to do and don't have to be accountable to the people. You know, I wonder if that's part of her point. You know what I'm saying? So, and again, we never know. But I do think in terms of that, yeah, again, we got to during these times find some ways to unite if we can, because we got a larger enemy to fight for sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As far as the Beyonce blackface situation, it was to shine light on African culture, is what they were saying.
Yeah.
I think that there's better ways to do that. That would be my criticism of the situation. And I wouldn't, and if I was to be in a position like such, I wouldn't want any Europeans being able to put me in that position. Especially people my people. And I think that I can express African culture in a way like, you know, you could have dressed like maybe ancient Egyptian women from that time, or, you know, posing like a queen, like, you know, so I think that was, I don't know if that was the best decision.
It's tough when you can't explain, you know, or you might not have intended to explain, but that's a tough situation. But what else is going on in the last week or so?
Well, you know, you got all types of stuff. You got the NBA.
Okay.
The NBA PA, the Players Association, is possibly proposing something that, you know, when they play, they can put social justice statements on the back of their jerseys instead of their names. What do you think of it?
So that would be something they're doing to show their support. I mean, you know, again, you know, I think we talked last week about some of the tokenism that I'm seeing. And I don't want to sound like a hater. So it's a good thing if people are doing positive things. But there's so much more, you know. For those that are religious, they say, you know, how can a rich man get into the kingdom of heaven? He can't give up some of his goods. Give up everything. Mm-hmm. So to me, I want to see people do stuff that hurts. Because when it hurts, then that means they really mean it. Mm-hmm. Then they're really willing to sacrifice something. So jersey, you're going to have to do a little, you know, I'm not that impressed. Great. Sounds like a feature in 2K or something. You could change the name on your jersey. You know, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I think it's a way for owners to profit.
Oh, wow.
Who's going to make money off the jerseys?
Yeah.
I mean, like, I think a Black Lives Matter LeBron jersey sounds like a great marketing scheme to me right now. I mean, considering the pandemic, any NBA player, Kevin Durant, Stephen Curry, perfect. Mm-hmm. Put some money in the owners' pockets. Yeah. So I don't think it's bringing about any real change. I think the things we say or the policies that America has anymore isn't going to be the problem. It's the attitudes of the people. Yeah. I mean, considering the fact we look at America, I think everyone pretty much has the rights they're going to get. So we're at a point now where
there are those that would call you a pessimist.
I don't think that's pessimism. I think it's true. On paper, everyone's equal in America. On paper, but we know that they're not supposed to kill black men in the streets, but they're doing it at a rate that's almost 3 times higher than white men.
So how does that relate back to your point about the jerseys? How does that, you know, what is?
I'm saying I don't think that's gonna bring about real change.
The real substantive change it needs. And the other thing is, I know we talked about Kyrie Irving last week, saying he wanted to, you know, they were saying he floated around the idea of his own NBA or own league, and I'm seeing, I think it's Bradley Beal. Avery Bradley for the Lakers is not going to play. I think his child has some respiratory issues that wouldn't get him approved to live in the bubble. And then he thinks it's a distraction. And there are other players that think it's a distraction. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Like some teams might be without players. I know Dwight Howard has said something about the possibility of that. And just kind of a mixed bag for me in terms of you want to see people get back, and we want to get back to normalcy. And we want to be entertained, but it's just sort of, I don't know how it feels, you know, in terms of sports starting up and then us being focused on who's going to win game 6 between the Clippers and the Lakers. You know, I don't know about what I think about that right now.
But speaking out against social justice, I mean, one thing that's going on right now that many people on the far right are mad about is these statues being removed of Robert E. Lee, and all these other figures that were previously revered in America and obviously still revered that they have a statue up. So what do you think of that?
I'm originally from Charlottesville, Virginia.
Yes.
And a few years ago, that's how the whole Charlottesville riot started. There was a brother by the name of Wes Bellamy who was a vice mayor and supported this young lady. I think it was a sister who wrote about having a statue removed. It was some type of activism around that, and he ended up supporting it in terms of legislation, and ergo it being discussions about it and there being a rally there. So listen, that whole area down there where that statue is, there's also a tree down there where people used to be hung from during slavery. In many southern towns, you have a square or a town square where there are remnants of slavery that are there.
Yes.
And it's painful for black people who care. Not for all black people, but for black people who care. So I'm 100% for the removal of any statue that causes offense, but I do recognize we got a dilemma. Because if I were a white American and I believed in Thomas Jefferson or Abraham Lincoln or George Washington or heroes, and then they owned slaves, and now everybody said, let's take down all of the statues, let's take them off of the money. They're sort of, from their perspective, they feel like they're losing their whole history and identity. So we have an issue with what that discussion is going to end up looking like in the national debate and in the debate among people and community. How do you feel as a 19-year-old college student when you see that discussion going on?
The only thing I can think about is what's going to happen next after this. I mean, this discussion is going to be a long discussion if you ask me. When you look up the definition of a revolution or situation where revolution happens, it says when two or more groups of people in the same nation have totally, they believe in totally two different things. And we have that in America. In fact, more than two. Robert E. Lee is a villain to a lot of people, but he's a hero to others. I think that's a dilemma. I don't know where that's going to bring us, honestly.
That's a interesting point you make. The Civil War is one of the most bloody wars in American history.
Yeah.
Right? But it was fought over the institution of slavery. It was fought over racism. It was fought over white privilege. It was fought over those things. It was fought over those things, people. Right?
Yeah.
So how do we get to a place when we can't even agree on news? My fake news is your true news. Your white supremacy is my black supremacy. All of these different dynamics, as you said, that are opposites.
Yeah.
At opposite ends of the spectrum. So I don't know how it plays out either, but I do know that when we can't even get people to wear masks, like in Michigan, just because they were told to wear masks, they're ready to bum rush the State House. So when you take people's statues down, who knows what plan they're willing to have? I know people are hanging on trees. I don't know. They're saying it's suicide. Who knows what's going on out here? And we're living in a dangerous America right now, and I think it's going to be increasingly more dangerous with all of the things we're dealing with, unfortunately, because of the polarization in the country, man.
Yeah, but you made a good point about those masks, right? And you see people like in the state of Florida, they seem to be going crazy about it. I mean, Florida today, it's Monday, people. 5,000 new cases a day, over 5,000. I mean, this COVID thing is not going anywhere.
Florida. You mean the same Florida where the governor was telling spring breakers to come down in early March and people were going down and he wasn't going to close down the beaches? And
Ron
and that one brother, remember that one brother in the city council? Mm-hmm. He went off on that lady saying, you don't care about these people, right? That Florida's having a lot of cases.
Yes.
I mean, listen, Texas, Florida, California closing bars again. I think Dr. Fauci, he's been a celebrity doctor through all of this, but he's also always said from the beginning, the virus will dictate what happens. And it looks like people talking about worrying about a second wave in the fall. It looks like the first wave never stopped.
Yeah. The
first wave has never stopped. So in terms of NBA, I even think about high school athletes or college athletes. Like, what are your thoughts, even as a student? Like, how does that feel? Being a college student, not knowing what's going to happen, not knowing there's going to be a HBCU homecoming.
There's been some schools. I think, if I'm not mistaken, A&T already the fall sports is done.
Okay.
A couple schools like that already. So, I think that's it's not something we want to hear, but it's progress at the end of the day. We want to make sure that people are safe in our communities,
Right.
are safe on these college campuses, because it can spread like that on the campus.
Right.
As far as the way people are gonna do learning, I'm hearing a mixture of distance learning and at the same time, maybe once or twice a week being in a classroom, and we'll see how that works. I mean, I think if you're wearing a mask and you're being careful, you're washing your hands, I do think that can be a viable option.
Right.
A viable option. I'm afraid that it's summertime right now, so the virus, we're getting new cases every day. It's not stopping, of course. It's not going to be as effective as maybe a fall when it gets, 70 degrees, sometimes 60. I'm afraid that in the fall, sometime around the fall, there's these breakouts on these college campuses, and there's a lot of people who suffer from them, especially in small towns,
But as a parent, as a student, that's one thing. But as a parent, I'm thinking, look, am I going to be paying for room and board, and then you could be home in 2 weeks,
right,
or 3 weeks? Those are some big considerations. Those are some really big considerations. But I hope as a people, we continue, folks, to be safe and continue to understand that this virus is still working this thing, as we all, want to be protecting ourselves. And I know another controversial topic before we get near the end here is that if we continue to talk about this defunding of the police.
Okay.
And in some areas, they're actually like dismantling the police department and coming up with new public safety teams, and they're saying they're not going without policing, but they're just thinking about it differently. Do you think there's some other institutions besides police department that need reform like that could benefit from a restructuring?
Well, in this we need to reform the judicial system. I mean, you read books and you do your research, you see that prosecutors do things like, oh, I don't want to prosecute this person for electoral fraud. They're buying votes from people, but I want to prosecute that person because I want them to win. I mean, our whole system needs to be reformed. I think the prison system needs to be reformed. We need to make it so that if I'm letting you back into my society, I need to make it sure you're ready to be in my society. I need to make a program where I'm teaching you to work. I'm teaching you a trade. I'm teaching you how to get back into that mindset of having that type of freedom. Because if not, I'm not only doing you an injustice, I'm doing your next door neighbor an injustice.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, so we need to make sure our people are safe. We need to have the best, the best policies for our people. But I think the court system and the prison system is another one.
Yeah, and I think, I'll be honest with you, I think our biggest fight, to me, is not against systemic racism even. I think our biggest fight, is against the systemic inferiority complex that we have as a people.
Okay.
Is that we are so quick, again, to fight one another, to come against one another, to be divided from one another when we have so much in common, right? They always like to say black people are not monolithic. We're not one mindset.
Right.
But we're one color when it comes to them killing us, when it comes to them oppressing us. So I'm a little, again, hesitant about some of the quick reforms that I see, like they're gonna have Black Lives Matter Day at Starbucks or at this restaurant. They're putting out commercials. I'm just a little skeptical because I think we need, as a people, we need to talk about what we're asking for. Where are all of our scholars and experts that are there to make sure we don't get cut short or fall short of looking or planning for economic reality, like as a result of the civil rights movement, that people argue there could have been better planning around civil rights? What are you thinking about sort of the change that some people seem to be celebrating already?
I think that what I think is might be dangerous in this generation is that social justice has become fashionable. Or what we think social justice is has become fashionable. I don't think that true social justice, the things that really need to happen, may be fashionable to a lot of people, but it's fashionable for someone to put on the "I can't breathe" shirt, and companies can profit off these things. So if you're a racist and you own Starbucks and you want people to wear Black Lives Matter, go ahead, do. We need to make sure this money's coming in. I'm not letting that stop my pockets.
Right.
I mean, I can call them an N-word when I You know what I'm saying? When I go
My
home every
thing,
day.
yeah, my thing is let's come to the table and talk about long. What you gonna do for 20 years?
Mm-hmm.
What's your investment for 20 years?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that's my thing, and so we'll continue to see what happens.
Yeah.
See how this materializes. But one thing for certain, we know that the Black Dispatch will be here to bring you some information, talk about some of these discussions. It's a multi-generation conversation that we have, and we hope to continue to bring it to you. So once again, I'm your boy Nuevo Black,
And this is the young guy Haki.
and it's the Black Dispatch.
Will be the same again, same again. I wish my happiness would come today. I don't hate myself. I just love you more. And I can't play myself. 'Cause you don't see